Fans were in disbelief for more than a year. Unexpectedly, Lisa Bonet and Jason Momoa, one of Hollywood's most beloved couples, broke up. What previously appeared to be the ideal family was marred by rumors of treachery, violent altercations, and hidden secrets. Jason and Lisa both kept quiet, but the rumors only got louder. However, Zoe Kravitz is now speaking up in a surprising approach. "I've had enough of the falsehoods." Zoe breaks the illusion and all of our preconceived notions about her mother's divorce with just 5 words. Her disclosure did more than just put an end to the rumors. It turned the whole thing on its head. Because in Zoe's opinion, the moment has come for the world to hear the truth. The fairy tale of Zoe Kravitz and its subsequent cracks. Zoe Kravitz was more than just a member of a contemporary Hollywood family. Prior to the divorce, fans viewed her as the protagonist of a real-life fairy tale. Lisa Bonet, her mother, has long been a representation of calm strength and bohemian elegance. She created a calm, stable existence after her breakup with Lenny Kravitz in the early 1990s, which Zoe grew up in. Then Jason Momoa arrived. Everything changed when Jason first met Lisa in 2005. He was boisterous, jovial, and blatantly devoted to her, even claiming to have had a childhood infatuation on her. And his friendship with Zoe grew stronger as his relationship with Lisa did. Jason embraced Zoe as though she were his own. He gave her the name Zozo Bear. She referred to him as Papa Bear. With their shared tattoos, silly pictures, and red carpet giggles, their bond felt real. He was family, not simply Lisa's companion. Fans were enamored with Lisa and Jason's mixed family by the time they got married in 2017. Lola and Nakoa Wolf, the 2 younger children, Jason, Zoe, and Lisa. It was picture perfect on the surface. However, as Zoe now discloses, the fissures had always existed. The unity behind the scenes was faltering. The change was also personal to Zoe. What began as a family fantasy took on a completely other vibe that didn't align with the public acclaim or Instagram posts. She is finally speaking up about exactly what she witnessed, and about which she kept quiet for years. Indications of fractures. What actually went wrong in the background? For the general public, Lisa Bonet and Jason Momoa's romance was a screenplay. Untouchable, romantic, and bold. Off-camera, however, the harsh realities of celebrity, frequent travel, and divergent lifestyles were subtly tearing them apart. The pivotal moment was obvious. Following his portrayal of Aquaman in 2018, Jason Momoa's career took off. He went from being a cult favorite to a worldwide sensation almost quickly. Jason was away from home more often than ever before, due to a combination of press tours, overseas filming schedules, blockbuster offers, and mounting commitments. And for Lisa Bonet, a lady who had made every effort to avoid the limelight in Hollywood, that change was alienating in addition to being uncomfortable. Lisa was allowed to maintain their quiet, grounded life in Los Angeles, while Jason flourished in the spotlight, traveling for months on end, mingling with Hollywood celebrities, and becoming a regular at glitzy parties. Later, the couple's friends would disclose that Lisa never liked industry politics or the circus on the red carpet. She cherished solitude, the outdoors, and spirituality, things very different from the cacophony of Jason's recent international renown. In previous interviews, Zoe Kravitz herself alluded to this widening gap by describing how her mother preferred simplicity and calm to the well-known driven lifestyle. Even though Jason loved Lisa, their physical and emotional separation was inevitable due to the demands of his rapidly advancing job. The couple's behavior made matters more difficult. Lisa was a very private person who preferred to handle her emotional problems in solitude. Jason, on the other hand, put his heart on his sleeve, yet he preferred to avoid conflict by escaping into his profession. Insiders close to the family realized by 2021 that they were leading more isolated lives. Jason would film in exotic places for extended periods of time. Lisa, who remained firmly anchored in California, was frequently spotted without her wedding band. Their meticulously manicured public personas kept the world blissfully in the dark. However, thoughts about release, separation, and growth that are subtle and even poetic. She discussed the value of letting go of those who are no longer on your path in one of her posts. A sentence that would be painfully clear to fans in the future. The enthusiasm surrounding their seldom public appearances together during their last year as a couple was possibly the most obvious indication of all. Experts in body language even observed that, in sharp contrast to their previous years of warmth and intimacy, they were becoming more physically distant from one another at occasions. The world then received their answer in early 2022. Or so they believed. Fans were devastated when Lisa Bonet and Jason Momoa revealed their unexpected breakup. However, Zoe Kravitz had only just begun speaking, and what she was going to say would permanently change the course of events. While the rest of the world assumed they already knew everything, the stillness that said more than words in the divorce bombshell. The world was caught off guard in January 2022, when Lisa Bonet and Jason Momoa jointly announced their split. The seemingly inseparable pair was ending their marriage after only 5 years of marriage and 16 years of dating. But it wasn't simply the divorce that attracted everyone's attention. That's how they made the announcement. We share this not because we think it's newsworthy, but so that as we go about our lives, we may do so with dignity and honesty. They wrote in a profoundly spiritual and poetic joint statement posted on Jason's Instagram. The love between us carries on, evolving in ways it wishes to be known and lived. We let each other be who we are learning to be. This news came as a shock to a generation of followers who had adored their romance. Confusion, hypotheses, and sadness erupted on social media. Everyone remembered one phrase: "We liberate one another." What was meant by it? Who want liberty? And what is freedom from? The internet filled in the gaps almost immediately. The gossip mill burst into flames. During his lengthy filming trips away from home, Jason was accused of infidelity by several newspapers. Others conjectured that Lisa Bonet had become weary of Jason's increasingly extravagant way of life, and accused him of partying excessively and ignoring his familial obligations. However, it didn't end there. There were dark, startling whispers that the marriage had been violent, claiming that either Lisa or Jason had been abusive. Tabloid headlines and internet trolls went crazy, fabricating stories with no supporting data. Others accused Jason of being irritable, while others even advanced the strange notion that Lisa Bonet was tough or domineering, portraying her spiritual, reclusive way of life as aloof or frigid. The pair's ongoing closeness after the announcement only served to further confuse matters. Jason was spotted spending time with Lisa and the children, supporting Zoe Kravitz at her Batman premiere, and going to family gatherings despite formally announcing their split. Jason was really spotted living in his modified vintage RV soon after the breakup, not because he was homeless, but rather because he truly enjoyed the freedom it offered. Nevertheless, headlines implying that a world-renowned celebrity had been expelled or left penniless were fanned by the image of him living in a van close to friends' residences. Fans didn't think the couple was really over, which made things much more complicated. There were constant rumors that Lisa and Jason were getting back together, that they were seen together, or that they were getting married again. False hopes of a reunion were wrapped into every picture of them together, whether they were co-parenting or just being friendly. However, one voice stood out conspicuously absent from the commotion. As outlandish charges were made against her mother and stepfather, Zoe Kravitz, the daughter caught in the midst, remained silent. However, that quiet wasn't a sign of disinterest. It was agony, processing, and protection. Because Zoe had been witnessing her family's disintegration in real time behind the news headlines. She was caught in the midst of it all. The daughter of Lisa and the stepdaughter of Jason, who, until it wasn't, thought their love was the kind of enchantment that's no longer seen in Hollywood. Zoe then spoke up, just when fans had given up on hearing more. The statement, "I'm tired of the lies," was hers. Because Zoe's next revelation did more than simply put an end to the rumors. 5 words. That's all it took to shift the entire narrative. And the world didn't anticipate it. Caught in the midst of Zoe's personal conflict, seeing its disintegration, seeing her stepfather Jason Momoa and mother Lisa Bonet transform from soulmates to strangers, was more than just a family tragedy for Zoe Kravitz. It was heartbreaking on all levels. To Zoe, they were just mom and father, but to the outside world, they were Hollywood royalty, the only real family dynamic she had ever experienced. Zoe's relationship with Jason Momoa was renownedly tight, in contrast to many step-parental relationships that are tense or distant. He proudly referred to her as his daughter in multiple interviews. They were not her biological father, but they had a strong bond that went beyond simple kinship. Additionally, Zoe was caught in an emotional crossfire when Lisa and Jason's marriage started to fall apart, fighting to shield her mother and stepfather from the allegations. She was juggling a lot more behind the scenes than the general public ever saw. According to people close to Zoe, the divorce affected her more severely than most people thought. Zoe had been her mother's emotional support system for years, particularly while Jason was away for extended periods of time. When Jason was abroad for months due to his successful Hollywood profession, Lisa frequently turned to Zoe for support. However, Zoe's affection for Jason remained unwavering, even though she was her mother's closest confidant. She freely acknowledged that Dad had a significant role in her life, sharing profound family customs, enjoying birthdays with him, and attending significant events like her 2019 wedding to Carl Glauman. However, as soon as the divorce news was made public, things quickly changed. According to insiders, Zoe found herself acting more and more as a mediator, in an effort to keep Lisa and Jason amicable, while also protecting her own emotional health. She was caught between feeling responsible for maintaining family harmony and not wanting to take sides. Zoe's body language changed, even in public. Fans observed a more guarded spirit from Zoe at events where Jason attended to support her, such as the 2022 Batman debut. Jason encouraged her with pride, while Zoe appeared more wary, maybe battling conflicting feelings about their changing family dynamic. Knowing that this was no longer just a private family affair made things much more difficult. The entire globe was observing. Every social media post, every statement, and every appearance were examined for hints as to Zoe's allegiance. Those close to Zoe, however, were aware of the reality. She had no preference. She was softly lamenting the dissolution of her family. For her, it was not about headlines or celebrity. It was about witnessing two individuals she cared about lose their capacity to work together. And rumors just became stronger while she was silent. It wasn't until Zoe said what no one else would. "I've had enough of the falsehoods." She did something that neither Lisa nor Jason had done since their breakup with those 5 words. Recognize the truth's emotional impact. Because this was more than simply a marriage breakup for Zoe. She was more hurt than anyone understood. And it was about the toll it took on all those involved. How Zoe's life, relationships, and identity were impacted by the divorce. The divorce of Lisa Bonet and Jason Momoa made news. But few people stopped to think about how it affected Zoe Kravitz's own life. It was more than simply an emotionally taxing encounter for Zoe. It subtly started to profoundly alter her perspectives on relationships, love, and trust. Zoe's brief marriage to actor Carl Glusman was one of the most notable examples of this influence. The couple began dating in 2016, and their little wedding in 2019, at her father Lenny Kravitz's house in Paris, seemed like the stuff of a dream come true. Both Jason Momoa and Lisa Bonet were present, grinning with their blended family. And Jason openly showed his satisfaction in Zoe's joy. However, Zoe filed for divorce in late 2020, less than 2 years later, long before the news of her parents' divorce would be widely publicized. Those close to Zoe suggested that seeing her parents' marital difficulties had a significant impact on her view of commitment, even though she never explicitly blamed her family dynamics for her failing marriage. Zoe's friends have frequently characterized her as fiercely independent, and someone who prioritizes emotional sincerity over outward appearances. However, Zoe apparently became more cautious and hesitant to fully open out in relationships after going through her own divorce and witnessing her mother's suffering so publicly. Her internal conflict was exacerbated by the mounting public pressure. Zoe was unintentionally singled out by internet trolls and detractors, as Jason and Lisa's divorce garnered media attention. Some mistakenly faulted her for not speaking out sooner about her parents' problems, while others accused her of being too Hollywood like her father, Lenny. Being judged for her family's suffering rather than her own deeds was an odd and incredibly unfair circumstance. Worse, some internet stories started misrepresenting Zoe's divorce as evidence that love in her family doesn't endure. For someone who was already dealing with the scars from her failed marriage, the analogy was obviously painful. It was even more frustrating to have outsiders use her parents' divorce as a weapon against her. In subsequent interviews, Zoe acknowledged that being in the spotlight exacerbates personal heartbreak. She talked on how exhausting it is to be scrutinized, evaluated, and compared to her well-known parents, both of whom had extravagant love stories that didn't turn out the way people had hoped. Even her friendships suffered. Following the divorce controversies, Zoe reportedly became more careful about who she allowed into her inner group. Zoe also realized that she no longer owed people her suffering or her quiet, because they would constantly project their own dreams or failures onto her life. Zoe Kravitz finally lost it, after months of silently putting up with the clamor, the lies, and the untrue stories about her family. It was time to stand up, not only for herself, but to finally correct the record. The world would be in utter shock at what she was about to announce. Enough is enough. The reasons behind Zoe Kravitz's eventual silence. Zoe Kravitz silently observed for months as outrageous accusations and untrue tales about her family made the rounds of tabloid headlines and social media. Her stepfather Jason Momoa and mother Lisa Bonet's divorce had turned into a public event. However, Zoe was extremely irritated by what others were saying, rather than just the fact that they were conversing. Zoe didn't waste any time getting right to the point when she eventually consented to participate in a rare, intensely private interview. Zoe gave an honest and unvarnished response. When the interviewer asked her why she had finally made the decision to speak up while the cameras were rolling, "I've had enough of the falsehoods." The tone for all that came next was established by that strong declaration. Drama wasn't Zoe's thing. She wasn't there to cause trouble. She was present in order to finally correct the record. For her family, not for herself. Perhaps the most harmful of all was the first and most agonizing rumor she dealt with. The unfounded claim that Lisa Bonet had suffered abuse at the hands of Jason Momoa during their marriage. This was not only untrue but extremely hurtful to Zoe. "My dad, Jason, has never been abusive, never." It's heartbreaking that people can create something so ugly out of a very human and painful situation, she remarked with conviction. On the other hand, there were reports that Lisa Bonet was the violent or hostile partner. People took her privacy and independence and turned it into something ugly. But maybe the most annoying rumor for Zoe was the constant speculation that Lisa Bonet and Jason Momoa were secretly getting back together, or that reconciliation was inevitable. "My mother is not violent. She's one of the most peaceful people I know. She's grounded, spiritual, and calm." Every co-parenting moment and every paparazzi shot of them together was blown up into articles about a romantic reunion. "They're not back together," Zoe groaned when the rumor was brought up. "They are not in a covert relationship. They have no intention of reconciling. People must quit making up fantasies that don't exist," she remarked acerbically. Zoe addressed another subtle but harmful assumption, that she had taken sides in the divorce, explaining that although Lisa and Jason still loved and respected each other, their relationship had changed into something healthier for both of them. A respectful, co-parenting partnership, rather than a romantic reunion. "I'm not on a team. I love both of them. They both love me. I'm thankful for that. People love to say, I'm team mom or team dad, like it's some kind of game." Zoe responded calmly but firmly. Setting the record straight wasn't about defending one parent over the other, but about honoring her family, reclaiming their story from the lies that had spiraled out of control, and protecting the truth. Zoe recognized that after putting an end to the false narratives and clearing the air, the public was still left asking, then what really happened? It wasn't anger or bitterness speaking, it was clarity, tiredness, and most importantly, love for her mother, Jason Momoa, and the truth. What caused a seemingly ideal love story to end in disaster? And in her most open admission to date, Zoe Kravitz was prepared to respond to that query with sincerity and compassion. Reason for Lisa Bonet and Jason Momoa's divorce. After the lies were finally exposed and the rumors were put to rest, Zoe Kravitz addressed the question that had been on everyone's mind. What went wrong? Zoe's explanation was far more tragic and human than the dramatic tales that the media had conjured up. "The truth is, they just drifted apart," Zoe said quietly, explaining that the same passion and energy that had once brought her mother and Jason together gradually turned into the very thing that pulled them apart. Zoe acknowledged that her parents' love was very real. There was no villain or single breaking point. However, in the end, it was life itself that tore Lisa Bonet and Jason Momoa apart, not betrayal. The biggest obstacle was Jason Momoa's growing fame and career demands. Zoe didn't blame Jason completely because, as an actress herself, she knew how hard it is to succeed in Hollywood and how hard he had worked for it. Instead, she spoke with the acceptance that comes from years of introspection. "I couldn't even recognize her at one point," she said, acknowledging the toll it took on Lisa Bonet. Zoe's voice was tinged with melancholy as she disclosed. She lost herself. Her mother, who had always prized solitude, simplicity, and serenity, found herself drowning in a world she never signed up for. The quiet life Lisa had always defended was shattered by the lengthy time apart, Jason's hectic schedule, and the attention that was always on them. Zoe acknowledged that Jason wasn't unaware of this either, and that he eventually came to terms with the situation and tried to slow down, be more present, fix things, and show up more. However, the harm was already done by that point. "He attempted," Zoe admitted. "I'm sure he made a sincere effort, but sometimes it's too late." In a very personal admission, Zoe remarked, "I was angry with her, saying, I felt like she should have battled more, held on longer, tried harder when she was angry with her mother. But with time, distance, and maturity, Zoe started to understand her mother's suffering. She made it clear that the divorce wasn't about betrayal or hatred, but rather about growth and change. Now I understand it. I get both of them. Sometimes love just isn't enough, Zoe thought. Zoe expressed gratitude for both of them, saying, "They both showed up for me, for my siblings, and they handled this with love, and that's all I could ever ask for." Two people moving in different directions, who have the courage to let go of the past, no matter how wonderful it was, she concluded. Despite everything that has transpired, Zoe Kravitz says her family is in a good place today, albeit different. Lisa Bonet has found peace in living life on her own terms once more, grounded, private, and surrounded by the people and energy that calm her. Moving forward, love, respect, and a new chapter for everyone. Even though Jason Momoa is no longer her husband, he is still a loving and present father to their two children, Lola and Nakoa Wolf, and he still has a strong bond with Zoe. Zoe still calls Jason family. Their relationship did not end with the divorce. In fact, Jason still proudly supports Zoe's career, attending her events and unapologetically referring to her as his daughter. Zoe stated resolutely that it doesn't change, and she also praises Lisa and Jason for putting their kids' emotional health ahead of their own personal conflicts. Their co-parenting has been civil, peaceful, and based on love. Zoe learned a valuable lesson from the divorce. Zoe concluded, "We've all moved forward, but the love is still there. Always has been, always will be." What do you think about Zoe's decision to finally speak up? Was it brave, overdue, or something else entirely? Please feel free to share your thoughts in the comments section. Thank you for watching. Family isn't perfect, and that's okay. What matters most is showing up, being honest, and loving each other. Even if love looks different now. I'll see you in the upcoming video.